The story begins in an apartment in Seoul City, where a television broadcast delivers breaking news. The long-awaited shareholder meeting of Samjeon Group, one of the country's top 3 conglomerates, has finally concluded after 13 hours of intense discussions. The results are in. Jeon Seong-guk has been chosen as the next chairman. Unlike previous third-generation heirs who stepped down due to scandals or poor management, Seong has secured his position with a flawless record. Hearing the announcement, Seong bursts into laughter, fully embracing the moment. Years of effort have led him to this victory. Endless studying, rigorous exercise, overseas education, and keeping his reckless siblings in check. He managed his uncle's missteps and maintained a perfectly crafted public image, even taking care of his arranged marriage without a hitch. With everything falling into place, his rise to power seems inevitable. Holding a glass of his drink, he revels in his triumph. This is the beginning of a new era, and he is determined to cleanse Samjeon of any remnants of the past. His first step, eliminating Jeon Tae-guk's old loyalists, those he cannot tolerate. But before he can act, a sudden sharp pain shoots through his chest. His grip weakens, causing his phone and drink to crash onto the floor. Struggling to breathe, he collapses, his vision blurring. As his gaze falls upon a framed photograph of his grandfather, the founder of Samjeon Group, realization dawns. His grandfather had also succumbed to a heart attack. Panic sets in, but he refuses to believe he will meet the same fate. He is too powerful, too important to fall victim to something so trivial. Yet no matter how much he fights it, darkness consumes him. Moments later, a newborn baby's cries fill the room. The scene shifts to a happy couple gazing lovingly at their child. But the infant is none other than Seong himself. Trapped in the fragile body of a newborn, he is overwhelmed by shock and confusion. As the realization sinks in, uncontrollable cries escape him, his mind reeling with a single question. What the hell is happening? The next morning, the scene shifts to the baby's mother, Kim So-young, who gazes at her child with admiration. She turns to her husband, Jeon Ji-seong, and remarks on how handsome their son is. Ji-seong agrees, even comparing him to celebrity babies. So-young affectionately tells the baby that he is lucky to be born with such good looks. However, the infant, who is none other than Jeon Seong-guk, silently seethes at the remark. Frustration builds as he processes his situation, his perfectly sculpted body, standing tall at 183 centimeters, with a weight of 75 kilograms, and the strength to lift a total of 500 in the Big Three, is now gone. The prestige of his family, his flawless career, and the power he once wielded as the king of Samjeon have all vanished. In their place, he has been reduced to a tiny, helpless infant in what appears to be an ordinary household. Just a day ago, he was celebrating his success with his favorite wine, and now he is trapped in this absurd reality. His thoughts are interrupted when his mother coos at him, offering a bottle of milk. The sight of the cheap formula milk initially disgusts him, but his body betrays him. Overwhelmed by instinct, he eagerly drinks it, unable to resist the primal urge of feeding time. As he finishes, his mother praises his appetite, while his father plants a kiss on his cheek. The excessive affection unsettles him. Everything about this situation is absurd, dying at the peak of his success and awakening as a baby. But what truly unsettles him the most is his new parents. Their overwhelming love and warmth are unfamiliar, almost suffocating. This feeling of having parents, something he had never known before, shakes him. His mind drifts to memories of his past. His mother had always emphasized self-reliance, leaving for work without a second thought. His father had only expected him to take care of his younger siblings, insisting it was his duty as the eldest son. No warmth, no care, just expectations. Lost in these thoughts, an unfamiliar sensation creeps in. His chest tightens, and before he knows it, he begins to cry. But he quickly reminds himself that now is not the time for sentimentality. His parents, mistaking his outburst for drowsiness, assume he is simply sleepy after eating. He resists the idea, unable to comprehend how he could possibly sleep in such a situation. Yet, just as feeding was irresistible, so too is sleep in an infant's body. His eyelids grow heavy, and against his will, he drifts off, vowing to deal with everything later. Watching their baby sleep, Ji-seong advises his wife to rest as well. She refuses, instead suggesting they relax together. Turning on the television, she settles in to watch the news. The broadcast reports allegations of bribery against Samjeon Group's chairman, Jeon Jushin. The prosecution has launched an investigation, and Jeon Jushin himself has appeared for questioning. The moment those words reach Seong's ears, his eyes snap open. His body, which had surrendered to sleep just moments ago, reacts instinctively. He sits up, stunned by what he sees on the screen. His sudden movement does not go unnoticed. His mother excitedly points out to her husband that their baby just sat up on his own. But Seong is too preoccupied to care. His gaze remains fixed on the television, his mind racing with disbelief. The man on the screen is none other than his late grandfather. Seong moves closer to the television, his eyes fixed on the image of his grandfather. There is no mistaking it. He remembers this moment vividly. The year he turned 10, his grandfather had been exposed for bribing politicians using apple boxes, forcing him to stand trial. Those who feared the growing power of Samjeon Group had seized the opportunity, labeling the corporation as corrupt and reliant on bribery. But Seong knew better. To him, wealth was power, and connections were an even greater superpower. The belief that anyone could become rich simply by saving a little at a time was nothing more than a naive dream entertained by those with nothing. He recalls how, on the day his grandfather appeared before the prosecution, he had been the one pushing his wheelchair. It had been a carefully orchestrated performance to evoke public sympathy, but for Seong, it had marked his debut. The moment he showed the world that he was the rightful heir after his grandfather and father. Yet the real threat had come from within. His younger brother, Jeon Tae-guk, had gone abroad to study but had returned with nothing more than a drug addiction. That arrogant fool had spent his entire life trying to take his place. Seong now realizes that the true problem isn't just that he has become a baby or traveled back in time. It is that his fate, his position, and everything he had worked for are at risk of being stolen from him. Overcome with frustration, he begins to cry loudly. A while later, his mother approaches with a glass of freshly made apple juice, but Seong, lost in his thoughts, pushes it away. He has no time for distractions. Seeing his reaction, his mother grows concerned just as her husband returns home, cheerfully mentioning that his boss had given him some leftover meat. It is revealed that he currently works as a chef at a nearby jokbal restaurant. Noticing Seong's intense focus on the television, his mother signals toward their son. His father, observing the situation, questions whether the child has been watching the news all day. She explains that the moment they turn off the television or change the channel, he starts crying. Determined to change that, his father steps forward with a warm smile, attempting to divert Seong's attention. But Seong, uninterested, grabs his father's finger tightly, demanding through his gaze that the television be turned back on. Seeing his reaction, both parents sigh in disappointment. Meanwhile, Seong's mind remains occupied with far more pressing matters. He needs to gather as much information as possible, details about the current situation, his grandfather, Samjeon Group, and most importantly, how to return to his original body. Before he can do anything, his mother abruptly switches off the television. She insists that he has gone too long without eating and needs to rest. Picking him up in her arms, she carries him away. But Seong refuses to accept it. Tears stream down his face as he recalls the desperation with which he had fought to secure his place as Samjeon's successor. Was he supposed to simply lose everything to Jeon Tae-guk? The thought is unbearable. Desperately, he tries to move toward the television again, but his mother gently reassures him, promising that he can watch it again tomorrow. Exhausted, Seong eventually gives in, falling asleep in her arms. He silently acknowledges the strange changes within him. Perhaps it is because he has become a baby, but his emotions feel chaotic. His thoughts are scattered, and everything seems to be slipping from his control. And yet, when this woman pats him, sleep overtakes him before he even realizes it. Watching their child finally drift off, his father sighs in relief, wondering if he had been like this all day. His mother admits that she is worried. Seong is nearly a year old, but has yet to utter the words mom or dad. Instead, he only stares at the news screen, leaving her anxious about whether she is raising him correctly. Understanding her concerns, her husband pulls her into a comforting embrace. They may not have much, but their love for their son is real. With reassurance, he reminds her that no matter what, their child will grow up just fine. A few days pass, and Seong's frustration reaches its peak. Despite secretly pretending to sleep while listening to the news every day, he has gathered nothing useful. The world continues as if nothing has changed, while he remains trapped in the body of a helpless infant. Reality is setting in. His struggle has led nowhere. His mother approaches with a gentle smile, noticing his lack of interest in the television. She asks if he doesn't need the news today, but Seong has already given up. There is no point in trying anymore. Lifting him into her arms, she decides to take him for a walk. A trip to the market for groceries with a chance to admire the flowers along the way might lighten the mood. As they step outside, she comments on the pleasant weather, her voice filled with warmth. Just then, the landlord appears, a young woman heading out for work. A brief exchange follows, with Seong's mother noting that she is leaving later than usual. The landlord acknowledges it before heading on her way, while Seong observes her with mild curiosity. He hadn't expected the building's owner to be so young. Arriving at the market, his mother eagerly chats about the prices, mentioning that the bean sprouts here are cheaper and that she plans to make a refreshing soup. She speaks enthusiastically, but to Seong none of it matters. No matter what she buys, his meals are limited to formula milk anyway. Just as he resigns himself to another mundane outing, something catches his attention. Above them, at a nearby construction site, an object begins to fall from a building under construction. The realization dawns instantly. Danger is imminent. A wave of panic washes over both Seong and his mother as the object hurtles towards them. Seong's mother instinctively shields him with her entire body as the heavy metal debris from the construction site comes crashing down. The impact is devastating. Blood seeps from her head as she weakly whispers her last reassuring words to Seong before her eyes close. Nearby, the landlord watches in horror, frozen by the sight. Seong, still in his mother's arms, stares at her motionless form, panic gripping his tiny body. His mind races, refusing to accept the possibility. She cannot die. Moments later, the emergency workers rush her to the hospital, informing the doctors of the severe head injury caused by falling debris. Time passes, and eventually, she regains consciousness. Her husband sits beside her, relief washing over him as he sees her wake. Confusion sets in as she immediately searches for Seong. Her husband reassures her. Seong is safe, thanks to her. But the child had been terrified when she was injured. As she cradles Seong in her arms, she soothes him gently, assuring him that she is fine and that she is just happy he is unharmed. For the first time, Seong looks up at her, overwhelmed by emotions he can't control. Tears stream down his face as his mind screams in frustration. Had she even considered how precious her own life was? What would have happened if she had truly died? His mother simply holds him close, her warmth enveloping him in comfort. The room remains silent for a moment before she notices something. The hospital room appears far too luxurious for their financial situation. Questioning it, she turns to her husband, puzzled by the choice of an expensive private ward. Looking slightly embarrassed, he hesitates before explaining that she requires complete rest. But before she can ask further, her gaze falls upon a sign nearby. Strict bed rest for pregnant women. The realization dawns on her, catching her off guard. As her husband approaches, he gently encourages her to focus on recovery for the next week, ensuring that she rests properly. Before they can continue the conversation, a nurse enters, reminding them that visiting hours are nearly over. Seong's father acknowledges it, preparing to leave. Before he departs, his wife entrusts Seong to him, asking him to take care of their child on the way home. Outside, as they step into the cool night air, Seong's father considers their options. A bus route leads home, but the fare is an issue. It isn't too far, so walking might be the best choice. Seong, processing his words, is left astonished. Could they not even afford a simple bus ride? This household, by his past standards, was utterly miserable, and yet the realization settles within him. His father, despite the struggles, works tirelessly to provide for his family. His mother, without hesitation, had risked her life to protect him. These people, however different from the life he once knew, are his family now. They are his parents. Lost in thought, he unknowingly utters a single word. His father stops in his tracks, stunned. Then, a wide smile spreads across his face as he realizes what just happened. For the first time, Seong has called him dad. A week passes, and the atmosphere at home is filled with joy. Seong's mother has been safely discharged from the hospital, and to celebrate, a small welcome party is held. His parents beam with happiness, their eyes filled with love as they admire Seong. His mother gushes over how adorable he looks, while his father wholeheartedly agrees, even comparing him to celebrity babies. Seong, however, is left stunned by their carefree attitude. Deep inside, frustration bubbles as he questions their priorities. They had struggled to pay the hospital bills, even avoiding bus fare to save money. With every penny being so crucial, was now really the time for a celebration? Wouldn't it be wiser to ignore unnecessary expenses like a first birthday party? Yet as that thought lingers, a realization dawns upon him. In his old life, he would have chastised them for such decisions, seeing them as foolish. But now, he understands. This is love. A kind of love that money could never buy. A love so deep that one would even risk their life for it. The past week had given him time to reflect, and he had come to a decision. His parents, despite their efforts, would never escape poverty. Their income barely covered daily expenses, making savings an impossible dream. And soon, a devastating economic crisis would hit. The weight of this knowledge fills him with anxiety. But before he can dwell on it further, an unexpected visitor arrives. His mother, hearing a knock at the door, opens it to find the landlord standing outside. She expresses her surprise at the visit, to which the landlord explains that she had heard about the hospital discharge and wanted to check in. However, that wasn't her only reason for coming. With a curious glance towards Seong, she poses an unexpected question. Had they ever considered making him a child actor? A few days later, Seong and his mother arrive at the venue for the child actor audition. Observing the surroundings, Seong silently evaluates the place, finding it decent enough. His mother, however, seems nervous, voicing her concerns about whether coming here was a mistake. Seong, on the other hand, sees this as a golden opportunity. Without hesitation, she steps inside the building. A brief flashback reveals the conversation with the landlord a few days prior. She had informed Seong's parents about a major TV commercial for a renowned conglomerate. The company she worked for was holding auditions to cast an important child actor role, and she believed Seong, with his striking looks and apparent talent, was a strong candidate. Returning to the present, Seong and his mother stand in the waiting area. Seong is filled with excitement, seeing this as his chance to earn money. Cameras had surrounded him since childhood in his previous life, and he had long mastered the basics of makeup and camera work. Auditions like these were nothing new. Confident in his abilities, he plans to dominate the audition, win all the prize money, and reinvest it for future gains. Just as he revels in these thoughts, a voice calls out from behind, urging them to step inside. Stepping into the elevator, Seong notices a woman holding a baby beside them. He watches in irritation as his mother compliments the child's cuteness. The nanny accompanying the baby introduces him as their young master, but the child's mother reacts coldly, dismissing Seong's mother and questioning her intentions for being at the audition. With a condescending tone, she boasts that her son, Jae-hui, will undoubtedly win. Seong immediately takes offense, his sharp gaze fixating on the woman. She, in turn, is unsettled by the intensity of his stare. Internally, Seong criticizes her extravagant attire, her obvious display of wealth, and the way she drags her nanny around like a servant. To him, she is the textbook example of a privileged, arrogant housewife. Determined, he vows to utterly surpass her child in the audition. Inside the audition hall, the selection process is underway. Contestants are being called in one by one for camera tests, where they are evaluated on how well they appear on screen and their ability to act under bright lights in an unfamiliar environment, a challenge for most young children. Soon, it is child number 10's turn, Lee Jae-hui, the son of the arrogant woman. Observing from a distance, another contestant's parent recognizes her as the wife of Daeokpung Paper's owner. Hearing this, Seong recalls the company as a fairly successful mid-sized business and watches closely to assess her child's performance. Jae-hui is asked to smile for the camera, but instead he grows nervous. His mother encourages him to do so, but the pressure causes him to burst into tears. The staff hesitates, noting that continuing with him crying would be difficult. His mother, however, refuses to back down, insisting that he will stop soon and demanding more time. But with other children waiting, the director decides to move on, calling for the next contestant, child number 12, Jun Seong-guk. Seong's mother gently places him before the camera. The assistant director signals for his audition to begin. However, before it can start, the arrogant woman forcefully shoves Seong's mother aside, demanding to watch. Unfazed, Seong sees this as the perfect opportunity to prove his superiority. With absolute confidence, he flashes an endearing smile, instantly capturing the director's attention. Mesmerized, the director rushes to grab his camera, snapping multiple shots while instructing Seong to strike various poses. To his astonishment, Seong follows every direction flawlessly. Watching from the sidelines, the woman seethes with anger as the director, thoroughly impressed, declares Seong a natural-born talent, a true genius. The director, overwhelmed with excitement, immediately decides to proceed with Seong's recruitment. Seong's mother, taken aback by the sudden declaration, struggles to process the situation. She had never considered her son to be especially talented, yet here he was, being called a genius. Stepping forward, the director formally introduces himself and praises Seong's performance, extending a handshake to his mother. He wastes no time in suggesting they finalize the contract, even asking if she has any specific conditions in mind. Still uncertain, she hesitantly expresses her doubts about Seong's supposed talent. Laughing, the director admits that his excitement may have made him rush things, but his judgment remains firm. Seong possesses an undeniable gift. His presence in front of the camera felt natural, and his ability to follow directions was astonishing, almost as if he understood every instruction perfectly. Hearing this, Seong silently acknowledges the truth. He did understand every word. The director expresses his enthusiasm about working with Seong, but before the conversation can continue, the arrogant woman from before erupts in frustration. In a fit of anger, she slams a camera onto the floor, demanding to know what was happening. The final audition had not even taken place, yet it seemed as if the winner had already been decided. Refusing to accept any outcome other than her own child's victory, she voices her protest. Despite the commotion, the selection process moves forward. The two final candidates are announced, Seong-guk and Lee Jae-hui. Their mothers wait with them in the designated waiting area, anticipation filling the room. Seong's mother watches her son in admiration, still amazed that he made it this far, despite the number of beautiful and intelligent children present. To her, he stood out the most. As she continues to reflect on the moment, an unexpected wave of nervousness washes over her. Sensing her discomfort, a nearby nanny gently inquires if something is wrong. Whispering, Seong's mother admits that she needs to use the restroom. The nanny offers to hold Seong while she steps away, and after a brief hesitation, she hands her son over and hurries off. The nanny, observing Seong closely, smiles as she acknowledges just how remarkable he truly is. However, standing nearby, the arrogant woman glares in their direction. Her frustration boils over and she lashes out, berating the nanny for showing any admiration toward Seong. Insulting both the child and the nanny, she makes it clear that she refuses to accept any comparisons between Seong and her son. Terrified, the nanny quickly apologizes. Seong, watching the scene unfold, seethes with anger. He wishes he could retaliate, but for now, he holds back. Moments later, the assistant director enters the room, prompting the arrogant woman to address her immediately. The assistant director scans the area, searching for Seong's guardian. Noticing this, the arrogant woman casually explains that Seong's mother had momentarily left, allowing them to speak freely. Taking advantage of the situation, she expresses her frustration, claiming the audition should have been a mere formality. Her child, she insists, was already chosen as the winner, and having to compete with another contestant was unnecessary. Hearing this, Seong is momentarily stunned. He quickly realizes the truth. This was a staged competition, rigged from the start to guarantee Jae-hui's victory. The assistant director tries to calm the woman, urging her to be patient so they don't attract unnecessary attention. The woman, however, dismisses the concern, reminding her that higher-ups had already made the decision. The director's opinion was irrelevant. Despite this, the assistant director remains cautious, emphasizing that the director's influence cannot be underestimated. Regardless, their focus remains on ensuring Jae-hui's success, a goal they have thoroughly prepared for by hiring a private tutor. Convinced that their victory is inevitable, the assistant director approaches Jae-hui to begin his practice run, guiding him through the lines he will need to say during the audition. Seong, observing the situation, smirks in amusement. The final audition begins shortly after. The director announces that the baby who can pronounce the lines naturally and perform the required actions will be declared the winner. Seong's mother, watching anxiously, silently prays for her son's success. Meanwhile, Seong remains composed, reassuring himself to stay focused. As the audition commences, Seong carefully positions himself to be captured perfectly by the camera. He knows that how he appears on screen will be a crucial part of his score. Across the room, Jae-hui also begins to move, but his mother, realizing his positioning is off, hurriedly instructs him to shift towards the correct camera. Noticing this, the director suggests skipping Jae-hui for the moment and proceeding with Seong's test first. He signals for the assistant director to start the line reading. Confident that Seong will fail, she approaches him, believing that without prior practice, he won't stand a chance. However, before she can even finish speaking, Seong flawlessly recites the line ahead of her. Stunned, she stands frozen in disbelief. The director, filled with pride, confirms his initial instincts. Seong is undeniably talented. Attempting to salvage the situation, the arrogant woman brings Jae-hui forward, urging the director to give her son a chance. The director complies, asking Jae-hui to say "Daddy," but the child fails to speak and instead bursts into tears. A wave of shock and humiliation washes over his mother. She had meticulously trained him for this moment, yet he was failing at the most basic task. When she voices her disbelief, the director catches on to her phrasing. Training? He questions her choice of words. Sensing the situation slipping out of control, the assistant director quickly steps in, announcing that the audition has concluded and thanking everyone for their participation. Meanwhile, Seong, standing confidently, acknowledges his own victory. There was no doubt. His performance had been superior. This body, this life, had secured its first triumph. However, despite his outstanding performance, the final announcement delivers an expected yet infuriating result. The winner of the child actor audition is declared to be Lee Jae-hui. Seong and his mother stood in shock, unable to believe the results of the audition. His mother, filled with frustration, turned to the assistant director, questioning how this could happen. She insisted that Seong's performance had been outstanding. The assistant director, unfazed, dismissed her concerns, stating that just because Seong had acted cute didn't mean he was suited to be a child actor. Before Seong's mother could argue further, the arrogant woman approached with a smug expression. She belittled their efforts, mocking them for daring to aim for victory with nothing but charm. In her eyes, a low-class child like Seong should be satisfied with second place. After throwing out her condescending remarks, she took her son and left without a second glance. Seong's mother, still reeling from the harsh words, whispered to herself, struggling to understand how someone could be so cruel, especially in front of a child. Seong, however, remained calm. Internally, he reassured himself that everything was going exactly as expected. He had foreseen such corruption and knew that direct confrontation was pointless. Instead of fighting a losing battle, he would adapt his strategy and aim higher. Just then, the director hurried over, requesting a private conversation. His expression was tense, and as he addressed Seong's mother, he revealed the truth. Higher-ups had rigged the audition from the beginning. Apologizing to Seong, he admitted that he hadn't meant for him to witness such corruption. Seong, unfazed, simply waited for what would come next. He had seen these kinds of schemes countless times in his past life. There was no point in getting angry. The real power wasn't in fighting against corruption. It was in forming the right connections. The director, still clearly frustrated, asked Seong's mother to bring him to the commercial shoot the following week. Seong immediately recognized this as his opportunity. A single commercial gig was not his ultimate goal. What he needed was a steady, long-term source of income. If handled correctly, he could turn this into a fortune, one that would support his household and secure a stable future. His mother, still confused, asked why they needed to be present for the shoot. The director explained that for baby models, backup models were always arranged as a precaution. Despite selecting a winner, there were concerns about their reliability. To ensure everything ran smoothly, they needed Seong to be available as an alternative. As he pleaded with her, Seong silently hoped she would agree. Seeing her son's eager expression, the director couldn't help but chuckle, remarking that Seong seemed to understand everything happening around him. If all child actors were as cooperative as him, his job would be much easier. He then handed his business card to Seong's mother, asking for her contact information. She provided it without hesitation, sealing their connection. Days later, Seong and his mother arrived at the filming location, a secluded yet impressive set in the forest. As she took in the scenery, she expressed her surprise at such a place existing in the middle of nowhere. Before they could explore further, the assistant director appeared, calling for Seong's mother. The moment Seong saw her, his mind filled with irritation. This was the same corrupt assistant director who had facilitated the rigged audition. Leading them inside, the assistant director acknowledged their presence as the backup model, explaining that the director had informed her of their arrival. As they walked, Seong's eyes landed on a familiar object, a third-generation washing machine from Samjeon. His mind immediately recalled its impact. This revolutionary drum system had caused a surge in Samjeon's stock prices, much to his grandfather's delight. His thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of the arrogant woman, her anger evident as she questioned why they were there. To her, they had failed the audition, so their presence made no sense. Seong's mother calmly explained that the director had invited them as backup models. She then firmly requested that the woman watch her language, reminding her that there was a child present. The assistant director attempted to pacify the situation, justifying Seong's presence as a precaution in case Jae-hui's condition worsened or a replacement was needed. The arrogant woman scoffed at the idea, insisting that Jae-hui was in perfect condition and that the commercial wouldn't be difficult. Seong, however, observed the child closely. Despite his mother's confident claims, Jae-hui didn't look to be in top condition at all. Growing more agitated, the woman dismissed them entirely, declaring their presence unnecessary. Before the argument could escalate, an actress named Seon-mi arrived, drawn by the commotion. Curious, she inquired about the children who would be filming with her. The assistant director quickly introduced them, explaining that Jae-hui was the audition winner while Seong was merely a backup model. Seon-mi turned to Jae-hui, offering him a friendly greeting, but the child remained unresponsive. Seeing his lack of reaction, she frowned, seemingly disappointed by his lack of enthusiasm. Without another word, she walked away. Instead, she approached Seong, who was visibly excited to see her. Smiling warmly, she noted how unusually friendly he was for a baby. His mother, watching the interaction, proudly remarked that Seong had always been affectionate. Amused, Seon-mi admitted that she found him much cuter than Jae-hui. Without hesitation, she asked if she could film with him instead. The arrogant woman, shocked by the suggestion, immediately grabbed Seon-mi's wrist, demanding to know what nonsense she was saying. Unfazed, Seon-mi simply looked at her, unimpressed, and questioned who she was to act so entitled. Before the situation could escalate further, a man approached and placed a hand on the arrogant woman's shoulder, his presence instantly commanding attention. Hearing the raised voices, he asked what was going on. The woman, now caught off guard, turned to him and hesitantly questioned his identity. Seon-mi, recognizing the man, lit up with excitement. Addressing him with familiarity, she expressed her delight at his unexpected arrival. The man was none other than the vice chairman himself, and his presence immediately changed the atmosphere. As Seon-mi approached him, she asked what had brought him to the shoot. The vice chairman calmly explained that he couldn't miss the commercial shoot for their new product. Meanwhile, Seong, observing the man closely, was struck with disbelief. He had not expected to see this person here. His mind raced as he processed the truth. This man, Jeon Jae-hyung, the vice chairman of Samjeon, was his father. Seong reflects on his father, Vice Chairman Jeon Jae-hyung, wondering what kind of man he truly was. While not as extraordinary as Chairman Jeon Jushin, he had proven himself as a competent leader. He played a crucial role in restructuring the company and enhancing its organizational framework during times of crisis. His bold investments in specialized fields earned him a reputation as a forward-thinking business leader, solidifying his place as a capable and successful vice chairman of Samjeon. Yet, despite his accomplishments, he had failed in his roles as a man, a husband, and a father. The sight of a chaotic scene before him unexpectedly brings back memories of a man with countless mistresses. When Seong turned 10, his father introduced yet another woman separately, just like before. This time, it was the 9th mistress, a woman he had erased from his mind the moment he saw her. Seon-mi, now present at the shoot, casually mentions that she is filming with children and points towards Seong with a smile. Vice Chairman Jeon Jae-hyung approaches Seong, observing him closely and commenting on his intelligence. Seong watches him in silence, the word father echoing in his mind. Before their interaction could continue, an assistant reminds the vice chairman that it is time to leave. Acknowledging the schedule, he expresses regret before turning towards a woman, one with a noticeably arrogant demeanor. His expression softens into a charming smile as he entrusts her with overseeing the filming, leaving her flustered but obediently assuring him that she will do her best. Seong, observing this interaction, understands the weight of his father's influence. The wife of Deokpung Paper's executive would never dare to oppose someone of his stature. Though he often seemed like a mere playboy surrounded by women, in crucial moments, he displayed the charisma of a true corporate leader. That was the essence of Jeon Jae-hyung. As he prepares to leave, the vice chairman places a firm yet brief hand on Seong's head, offering a farewell gesture. Watching him walk away, Seong silently reaffirms his own resolve. This life would not mirror his past one. He had finally found something worth calling a family, and he would protect them at all costs. One day, he would build a company greater than Samjeon itself. A time would come when their paths would cross again, but when that day arrived, he would stand as an equal. The assistant director interrupts his thoughts, signaling the beginning of the filming process. She instructs everyone to prepare, calling for the child models to wait for their turn. Seong quickly shifts his focus, pushing aside thoughts of his past life. What mattered now was the present. The advertisement's concept is simple. A picturesque villa in the forest, a mother doing laundry as her baby watches. She washes the father's white shirt, stained with sweat, while the Samjeon washing machine hums in the background. The machine works its magic, leaving the shirt pristine. The baby, delighted, rubs its cheek against the freshly cleaned fabric before calling for the father. The advertisement would conclude with a shot of the shining washing machine, exuding freshness. In his previous life, this very commercial had been a massive success, winning the prestigious Donghae Advertising Award. The child actor featured in it had risen to stardom. Seong contemplates whether he should be the one starring in it this time. Before he can dwell on the thought, Jae-hee suddenly begins crying uncontrollably. Seon-mi, clearly frustrated, expresses confusion over the baby's behavior. Every time she approaches, he resists and even hits her. Seong's mother, startled, wonders what could be causing such a reaction. But Seong internally feels triumphant. His plan had worked perfectly. He had given the distressed child a simple tip. If he fought back against Seon-mi, he would be sent home early. Somehow, as babies, they had managed to communicate, and Jae-hee had followed his advice flawlessly. The director, observing the situation, finally decides to move on. The first model is dismissed, and preparations begin for the second one. This decision leaves the arrogant woman outraged. She refuses to accept it, insisting that her child was the rightful winner of the role. The director, clearly frustrated, points out that the shoot has been at a standstill for over an hour. The baby refuses to cooperate, repeatedly hitting the actors, making it impossible to proceed. Their schedule demands that they finish filming today. The woman, unwilling to back down, reminds everyone of her family's status. She hastily makes a call, threatening to contact Deokpung's chairman, who deeply cherishes his grandchild. Her intention is clear. She plans to have the entire crew replaced. The moment this declaration is made, tension fills the room. Without warning, Seon-mi steps forward and delivers a sharp slap to the arrogant woman. Shock spreads across the set, leaving both the director and Seong's mother stunned. Even the woman on the receiving end is left speechless, barely able to comprehend what had just happened. Anger quickly takes over as she demands an explanation for such an outrageous act. Seon-mi, unfazed, merely smiles. She expresses her deep dislike for people who create unnecessary chaos on set. While she acknowledges the woman's status as the wife of a Daeokpung paper executive, she dismisses the inflated sense of self-importance that comes with it. The director, sensing the rising tension, quickly intervenes and suggests taking the baby inside for a break. However, Seon-mi refuses to step back. Instead, she declares her intent to continue the shoot and makes it clear she wants to film with Seong. As the director called for everyone to stand by, frustration flickered across the arrogant lady's face. She couldn't understand why Seong was being chosen over her son, Jae-hee. To her, a lower-class child had no place in this shoot. Meanwhile, Seong's mother reassured him not to pay attention to such remarks. Seong, however, remained unfazed. He recalled how, in his past life, the red recording light of a camera had followed him to his final moments. But acting confidently in front of it had become second nature to him, a skill he had mastered. He knew exactly how to handle the situation. The shoot commenced. Seon-mi flawlessly delivered her lines, demonstrating the effectiveness of the washing machine. As she finished, Seong took his cue. He grabbed the freshly cleaned shirt and smiled, radiating an innocent charm. His performance immediately caught the director's attention. Overjoyed, the director instructed the crew to keep the main camera focused on Seong. His gaze remained fixed on the lens, his expressions precise, his timing impeccable. The director couldn't believe what he was witnessing. This child had an instinctive grasp of acting. Even Seon-mi was taken aback. She marveled at how naturally Seong performed. As she prepared for the next sequence, the assistant director signaled her to proceed. Holding Seong in her arms, she delivered the final lines of the commercial with enthusiasm, completing the scene. The director, watching the synergy between the two, felt completely satisfied. As evening fell, frustration boiled over for the arrogant woman. She couldn't accept that a mere child, just because he looked cute on camera, had replaced her son as the commercial's lead. She voiced her anger loudly, questioning the decision. The director dismissed her complaints, reminding her that Jae-hee had failed to perform. While Seong's mother grew a little uneasy about the brewing conflict, Seon-mi reassured her. She pointed out that, no matter how much the woman protested, the decision had already been made. There was nothing that could be done if a child couldn't act. Compared to that, Seong had delivered a flawless performance, even managing to complete the shoot in just 2 takes. Still unwilling to back down, the arrogant woman lashed out, belittling Seon-mi. She criticized her lack of understanding, emphasizing the significant financial investment she had made in the advertisement. Her anger turned toward the assistant director, accusing them of also benefiting from her wealth. The director, hearing this, turned to the assistant director in disbelief, demanding an explanation. The woman, now completely enraged, declared that she wanted nothing more to do with the commercial. She vowed to sue everyone involved before storming off with her child. Once she was gone, the director turned to Seong's mother, apologizing for the unexpected outburst. She, however, simply smiled, acknowledging the effort everyone had put in. More than anything, the director was grateful to Seong. Without him, the situation could have turned out much worse. He assured them that there would be no additional filming required, and the company would ensure their payment was handled properly. Hearing this, Seong felt a deep sense of satisfaction. As his mother prepared to leave, she asked if they should head home. Before they could go, Seon-mi approached with an offer. She suggested driving them home in her van. Accepting the kind gesture, they left together. During the ride, exhaustion finally caught up with Seong, and he drifted off to sleep. Watching him, Seon-mi couldn't help but comment on how peaceful he looked. His mother, glancing at him affectionately, acknowledged that he must have been worn out from the day's events. She expressed gratitude for being given a ride in such a nice car. Seon-mi, however, insisted that she should be the one thanking Seong. Her words confused his mother at first. She then elaborated, explaining that Seong had been an exceptional lead actor that day. Because of him, she had finished work early. His ability to follow the camera, his awareness of the angles, and his understanding of the scene's rhythm all set him apart. Every movement he made was deliberate, yet natural. To her, he wasn't just a child playing a role, he was already a complete actor. Hearing this, Seong's mother was left speechless. Then, Seon-mi continued, revealing that she had a proposal to make. Just as she spoke, Seong stirred awake, hearing her words. Both he and his mother were left stunned by the unexpected suggestion. A small smile played on Seong's lips as he awaited what was to come next. Inside Seong's home, the atmosphere was filled with astonishment as the landlord handed over the payment for his acting role. The total amount came to 4 million won. Initially set at 3 million, the director had insisted on increasing it, leading to the generous sum. Seong's parents were left speechless at the sight of so much money, unable to believe their fortune. Seong, too, was elated. In his mind, he reaffirmed that choosing child acting had been the right decision. There was no other way to earn such a large amount while trapped in a baby's body. This money would serve as perfect starting capital, something he could invest wisely, perhaps in stocks or gold. His father, overwhelmed with excitement, marveled at the sum, admitting that he had never held so much money in his hands before. His mother, however, appeared deep in thought. Without hesitation, she handed a card to the landlord, explaining that actress Seon-mi had given it to her the previous night. Seong recognized it instantly and understood why his mother was so taken aback. The landlord, too, was momentarily stunned as she examined the card. It bore the name of Seon-mi's agency, Sinsung Entertainment. Seong's mother hesitantly shared the unexpected news. Seon-mi had taken a strong liking to Seong and wanted to bring him into Sinsung Entertainment as an exclusive child actor. This revelation took his father by surprise. The idea of their baby becoming a celebrity had never crossed his mind. His mother remained uncertain, hoping for Seong's success, but unable to grasp how things had escalated so quickly. Sensing their concerns, the landlord immediately reassured them. She promised to look into the agency, check its reputation, and find out more about its CEO and how they treated their actors. This gesture of support brought visible relief to Seong's mother, who hadn't expected such dedication. Even Seong was impressed, silently noting how far the landlord was willing to go to help them. Before leaving, the landlord congratulated Seong on his official debut as a commercial model and shared that the advertisement would air in 2 weeks. Just as she was about to step out, Seong's mother called out to her, causing her to pause. Curious, the landlord asked if she was feeling uneasy about something. His mother, however, had a different question in mind. She wanted to understand why the landlord had been so supportive. Time and again, she had recognized Seong's talent and stepped forward to help them in every possible way. The landlord's expression softened as she explained herself. Having lived alone since she was young, she had endured many hardships. She had saved every penny, sacrificing food and clothing just to afford the building they now lived in. When Seong's parents had moved in, they had left a lasting impression on her. Seeing a young couple working hard together had filled her with admiration, and she had simply wanted to cheer them on. In the end, she admitted, it was just her way of being nosy, and she hoped they didn't feel burdened by her actions. Hearing this heartfelt confession, Seong's mother smiled warmly. She then made a request, one that caught the landlord completely off guard. She asked if she could call her Uni, a term of endearment meaning older sister. The landlord was momentarily taken aback, but Seong's mother continued, expressing her desire to treat her like family. She wanted to cook side dishes for her, just as she would for a close relative. The landlord, touched by the sentiment, let out a small smile before agreeing. From that moment on, she would start calling her by her given name, So Young. This exchange brought a sense of warmth and newfound closeness between them. Seong, quietly listening to the entire conversation, couldn't help but smile. A deep sense of contentment settled over the room as everyone basked in the happiness of the moment. 2 weeks passed, and the long-awaited day arrived. Seong's father, brimming with excitement, eagerly informed his boss, Park Won, that they had closed the shop early, just as planned. In return, Park Won, holding Seong in his arms, expressed his own enthusiasm for watching the commercial. Since their shop had a large TV, it was the perfect place to gather and celebrate Seong's debut. Seong, in his mind, assessed the situation. Normally, he wouldn't tolerate such familiarity from this old man, but considering the favor he owed him, he decided to let it slide just this once. Moments later, the landlord arrived, greeted warmly by Seong's mother. She had made it just in time, as the commercial was about to air. As she settled in, she commented on how it felt like they were all gathered for a movie night. Seong's father, unable to contain his anticipation, urged everyone to take their seats as the commercial began playing. The atmosphere was filled with excitement as the screen lit up. Everyone watched intently, captivated by the well-executed advertisement. Seon and Seong's performances stood out, their expressions flawless, their presence natural. By the time the commercial ended, Seong's family and friends couldn't hide their joy. Applause broke out, with Park Won clapping enthusiastically. The landlord, equally impressed, praised the production, pointing out how polished and well-edited it was. She even speculated that if things went well, the commercial might win the advertisement of the year. Seong, hearing her keen observation, acknowledged her sharp eye for such things. Overwhelmed with pride, Seong's father embraced him tightly, marveling at how such a charming and well-mannered child could be his son. Just then, the ringing of a phone interrupted their celebration. A call had come through to Park Won's shop. Answering it casually, he informed the caller that they were closed for the day. However, his expression quickly shifted to one of surprise upon realizing who was on the other end. It was none other than the director of Seong's commercial. The director, aware that the family had gathered to watch the advertisement, had something urgent to discuss. He requested to speak with them immediately. Seong's parents arrived at the director's apartment, warmly welcomed as they stepped inside. The director's gaze fell on Seong, who responded with a cheerful smile, much to the director's surprise. He noted how much more expressive the child had become, realizing that Seong was already talking more than before. Seong's mother, amused, explained that he was at the stage of learning to speak, constantly babbling throughout the day. The director, pleased with the progress, considered the possibility of giving him longer lines in future projects. Seong, excited by the prospect, recognized that he was steadily moving toward becoming a full-fledged actor. The discussion soon shifted to the real reason for the meeting. The director revealed his plans for a new reality show featuring Seong as the lead. Titled Just Baby, the program was a parenting reality show where 5 well-known idol members would live together and care for Seong. Before the parents could fully process the idea, a young man entered the room, greeting them warmly. He was Tae-hyung, the leader of Just. Seong's mother immediately lit up with excitement upon recognizing him. Noticing her enthusiasm, Tae-hyung acknowledged that she seemed familiar with their group. She admitted to having seen them on television, which only made him more determined to continue working hard toward their goal of becoming the nation's top idol group. Seong's father, on the other hand, was less than pleased, feeling a pang of jealousy at his wife's enthusiasm. Observing his father's reaction, Seong couldn't help but find it amusing, silently thinking that jealousy was never a good look. The director assured them that once filming began, they would meet the rest of the idol members. However, Seong's mother voiced her concerns about whether this would be too overwhelming for her young son. Hearing this, Seong made a mental note to remember that his mother had chosen him over an idol. The director emphasized that Seong was the heart of the program. His ability to empathize, his expressive face, and his awareness of the camera made him irreplaceable. Without him, the show wouldn't be the same. Seong, recognizing the opportunity, grew more excited. He recalled watching this very show in his past life. The unique concept of idols struggling with childcare had captivated audiences, turning the program into a national sensation. It was the first of its kind, setting the standard for the parenting reality genre. For Seong, a future child star with ambitions of building wealth, this was the perfect stepping stone. However, his father remained hesitant. He worried that too much exposure might prevent Seong from growing up like a normal child. His desire was to raise him with love, not as a celebrity. The director, taken aback by the concern, hesitated, but Tae-hyung stepped in to share his own experience. He had also started as a child actor and understood the challenges of growing up in the public eye. Despite the constant attention, he had no regrets. The right environment had allowed his talent to shine, leading him to where he was today. Encouraging Seong's father to trust his son, he urged him to give Seong the opportunity to reach his full potential. Hearing this, Seong's father turned to his son, reflecting on his natural talent and charm. If his destiny was to rise to the top, perhaps it was only right to let him shine. Finally, he reached a decision and shook the director's hand, entrusting Seong to his care. With the contract signed, Preparations for Korea's first-ever parenting reality show, Just Baby, officially began. The countdown to the first day of filming unfolded. Day 12, contract finalized. Day 5, concept shoot completed. And finally, Day 0, the highly anticipated first day of filming. The idol group members arrived one by one. First came Taehyung, followed by Lucas, Jaehyun, Byeomseon, and finally, Michael. Seong's mother, overjoyed to meet them, couldn't hide her excitement. Seeing her reaction, Jaehyun took her hand playfully, mentioning that he had heard she was a fan. Her husband, watching from the side, was visibly irritated. The director soon gathered everyone, explaining that they would begin filming at Just's dorm. The broadcasting station had high hopes for the show, so they needed to stay focused and deliver their best performance. Seong observed them carefully, recognizing each of them from his past life. He recalled how these same idols had performed at his company's events before. One of the members approached Seong, scrutinizing him with mild disappointment. He commented that the baby didn't seem that cute and attempted to pick him up. Seong, unimpressed by the casual treatment, immediately pushed his hand away. In his mind, he found it ridiculous that someone would dare to touch him so carelessly. Another member stepped in, scolding the first for not washing his hands after smoking. A baby shouldn't be handled with dirty hands. Seong, recalling this particular Korean-American member's troublesome nature from his past life, made a decision. He would take control of the show. He would shape the perfect character arcs for everyone. With that in mind, he put on his most adorable smile, instantly winning over the entire room. As the others gushed over his cuteness, the previously dismissed member stood at a distance, watching with a knowing smirk. His expression suggested that he wasn't about to give up so easily. The director gathered everyone and outlined the filming schedule. Over the next 3 days, they would conduct pre-filming sessions at Just's dorm. The recorded footage would then be edited into 3 pilot episodes, allowing viewers' reactions to determine the regular broadcast schedule. Daytime filming would proceed as planned, while at night, observation cameras would take over as the staff left. Seong's parents were offered accommodations at a nearby hotel, assuring them that their son would be cared for with utmost caution. Hearing this, the idols enthusiastically reassured Seong's parents, promising to take good care of him. With the plan in place, the director signaled everyone to do their best. The assistant director then set up the first scene, beginning with a narration. The storyline introduced 5 young men living in a semi-basement in Seoul, striving to become top idols, when their lives suddenly took an unexpected turn with the arrival of a baby. As the cameras rolled, all 5 actors turned to look at Seong, who simply stared back at them without any reaction. The sudden silence left them momentarily stunned. Seong's mother, watching from the sidelines, hesitated before quietly asking if there were any scripted lines. The assistant director reminded her that this was a reality show. Natural reactions were key. However, the idols, unfamiliar with handling a baby on camera, whispered among themselves, unsure of how to proceed. Observing their hesitation, Seong quickly realized that he needed to take charge. Understanding that a baby in a new environment would naturally feel unsettled, he suddenly burst into loud cries. The unexpected reaction startled the idols, prompting Taehyung to quickly lift him into his arms. Another member, noticing Taehyung's awkward hold, stepped in and gently took Seong instead. His soft tone calmed Seong almost instantly, surprising the others. Confidently, he remarked that babies always responded well to handsome faces. This sparked a playful debate among the idols, each trying to prove their own charm. As Seong watched their interactions, he silently analyzed their personalities. Taehyung embodied the responsible leader, exuding a fatherly presence. Jaehyun, with his gentle and narcissistic nature, fit the role of a caring mother figure. Lucas, the easygoing athlete, carried the warmth of an older brother, while Byeomseon, quiet yet considerate, subtly looked out for the others. Together, they formed the perfect group dynamic for a household setting. Shifting his gaze to another member, Seong considered how best to categorize him. Though he would have made an excellent villain, Seong decided that for the sake of the group's success, it was better to position him as a rival instead. With this thought, he shot a sharp glare in his direction. Meanwhile, the pink-haired idol noted that Seong likely needed a diaper change. Taehyung, visibly uneasy, admitted that he had never handled a diaper before. Stepping forward with confidence, Michael took over, assuring everyone that it was no big deal. However, just as he began the task, Xiong suddenly urinated directly onto Michael's face. Feeling utterly refreshed, Xiong couldn't help but relish the moment. The sight of Michael's stunned reaction left Tae-hyung in shock, while the rest of the idols burst into laughter. Furious, Michael shouted in frustration, but Tae-hyung quickly intervened, attempting to calm him down. The entire crew found the situation hilarious, their laughter echoing around the set. Seong, satisfied with the chaos, recognized the comedic value of the moment. It was exactly the kind of spontaneous humor that made reality shows entertaining. The shoot had been a success. As filming continued, the day gradually turned into evening. The director announced a 2-hour break before resuming with the next segment. The idols, already exhausted, murmured among themselves about how challenging reality shows were, wishing they had a script to follow. During the break, Seong's mother approached him with a smile, praising him for his performance. Noting that he must be hungry after all the activity, she handed him a banana. Seong, delighted, eagerly took a bite. Reflecting on his past life, he realized he had never given bananas much thought before, but now they tasted incredible. Meanwhile, Tae-hyung approached Seong's father, suggesting that he could speak more casually with him. He then admitted that being around Seong had an unusual effect. Whenever Seong was nearby, he found himself naturally immersed in the moment. Despite the lack of a script, everything seemed to flow perfectly, as if Seong instinctively understood each person's role and played along accordingly. Seong's father dismissed it as mere coincidence, but Tae-hyung wasn't convinced. Even as a baby, Seong shone brighter than he had expected. Elsewhere, Michael emerged from the shower, still fuming over what had happened earlier. Muttering to himself, he questioned whether babysitting was even something an artist should be doing. At that moment, the assistant director placed a container in the fridge, explaining that it was baby food for Seong's evening meal. Michael, eyeing it with a smirk, took it from his hands and assured him that he would prepare and feed Seong himself. As he walked away, he reached into his pocket, revealing a small packet of chili sauce. A mischievous glint flashed in his eyes as he silently planned his next move. Michael, frustrated with being assigned to babysitting duties, decided to take matters into his own hands. If he was going to be stuck watching over a child, he would at least create an entertaining scene. With that thought, he reached for the chili sauce and mixed it into Seong's food, smirking as he anticipated the chaos that would follow. Meanwhile, the assistant director confirmed that the hidden cameras were set up. Michael, maintaining his confident demeanor, signaled for the crew to leave the set. As the actors returned to their apartment, exhaustion weighed heavily on them. While some debated what to do next, others were simply too drained to care. One suggested eating dinner first, while Tae-hyung reminded them that Seong needed to be fed as well. Michael, suppressing his amusement, stepped forward with a cheerful expression, presenting the prepared baby food. The sudden change in his behavior raised suspicions, but he brushed them off, insisting that he would handle feeding Seong himself. Seong, seated and waiting, observed Michael's every move. Instead of eating, he attempted to feed Michael first, playfully offering him a spoonful. Tae-hyung, finding the moment amusing, pointed it out to the group, which only irritated Michael further. He hesitated, clearly unwilling to taste the food himself. Growing impatient, Tae-hyung casually took the bowl and tasted the food instead. Within moments, his expression twisted in shock. Alarm spread through the group as they noticed his discomfort. Seong, observing the scene, felt a wave of anger rise within him. As expected, Michael had tampered with his food. The burning sensation in Tae-hyung's mouth quickly confirmed what had happened. He recognized the taste of hot sauce, and all eyes turned to Michael, demanding an explanation. Realizing he had been caught, Michael attempted to laugh it off, calling it a harmless joke meant to make the show more entertaining. He argued that such moments added excitement to the program. However, his justification was met with immediate backlash. Tae-hyung, visibly furious, reminded him that there were boundaries that should never be crossed, whether for entertainment or not. Another member, just as enraged, pointed out the dangers of feeding hot sauce to a baby. If Seong had eaten it, the consequences could have been severe. Approaching Seong, Tae-hyung gently reassured him, apologizing for the incident and acknowledging that Michael had been reckless. Michael, still unwilling to admit fault, dismissed the concern, claiming that Seong wouldn't even understand what was being said. But Taehyung refused to back down, firmly stating that Seong was far more perceptive than they realized. Whether or not he understood, an apology was necessary. Seong, watching the exchange, couldn't help but smile. It was clear that these individuals had potential. They just needed proper guidance, and he was more than ready to lead them. The next morning, news of the show's success reached Seong's household. Their landlord arrived with exciting information. Just Baby's first episode, scheduled to air on Friday, had already reported an astounding 20% viewership rating. This was far beyond expectations, even surpassing the average ratings of MVC's flagship variety programs. The director had contacted them, confirming that the show was now officially set for regular programming. Seong's parents were taken aback by the incredible achievement. His mother, amazed by the numbers, questioned whether such a rating was truly significant. His father, however, understood its magnitude. This level of success was unprecedented. The landlord, sharing in their excitement, congratulated Seong personally. Seong, in return, felt a deep sense of satisfaction. As the mastermind behind it all, this result was only natural. However, he knew better than to be complacent. His goals were far greater: wealth, power, and ultimately a position among the elite. His ambitions stretched far beyond just being a successful child star. With these thoughts fueling his determination, he let out a bright, triumphant laugh. During their conversation, Seong's mother brought up another matter. A few days earlier, representatives from Sinsung Entertainment had visited their home, offering congratulations on the show's success and presenting them with a fruit basket. They had also delivered a message. The company's CEO, Shin Sung-jung, had requested a meeting. Hearing this, the landlord's expression shifted. She admitted that she had been researching Sinsung Entertainment and had come across troubling rumors. While the company held significant influence in the industry, its reputation was far from clean. Whispers of shady dealings and connections to criminal organizations surrounded both the agency and its CEO. Seong's parents, stunned by the revelation, hesitated. The landlord, acknowledging the difficulty of refusing such an influential figure, suggested that they at least hear him out. If anything felt off, they could sever ties before getting too involved. As the conversation unfolded, Seong's mind raced. The mention of Sinsung Entertainment triggered a flood of memories. He remembered something alarming. Panic set in as realization struck. This was dangerous. Shin Sung-jung was not someone to be involved with. Not through a contract. Not at all. Seong's parents arrived at the grand office of Shin Sung-jung, who welcomed them with a warm smile. He gestured for them to take a seat, encouraging them to feel at home. Despite his inviting demeanor, there was a weight in the air, an unspoken tension that Seong could sense even from a distance. The landlord, maintaining her composed yet cautious approach, inquired about the reason behind the meeting. Without hesitation, Sung-jung revealed his intentions. He had an offer for Seong, an exclusive contract that would ensure his future in the entertainment industry. Seong, silently observing, felt a spark of irritation. There was something unsettling about the way Sung-jung spoke, as if he already knew too much about him. The landlord pressed further, curious about the specifics of this so-called great opportunity. Sung-jung wasted no time in presenting the details. A 10-year exclusive contract with Sinsung Entertainment, Korea's leading agency. He emphasized the prestige of the company, even mentioning that top actors like Jang Dong-gun and Seon-mi were part of their roster. To sweeten the deal, he claimed that the contract terms had been adjusted specifically for Seong's benefit. As the landlord scanned through the contract, her expression shifted. It was clear that something was off. Sung-jung, sensing her hesitation, elaborated on the terms. A 10-year commitment with a 70-30 profit split favoring the agency. Seong, hearing this, was instantly alarmed. To him, it was nothing short of exploitation. The deal was structured to trap an up-and-coming star, draining every ounce of profit from them before discarding them once their value diminished. It was a parasitic contract, one that had destroyed many careers in the past. Sung-jung, it seemed, had not changed at all. Memories from Seong's past life flooded his mind. He recalled how Sungjung had maintained close ties with his father's corporation, the Samjeon Group. Through connections with actress Seon-mi, his father funneled lucrative advertising deals to Sinsung Entertainment. In return, Sungjung remained fiercely loyal, sending his agency's celebrities to every Samjeon event. However, his empire eventually crumbled when he was exposed for blackmailing and assaulting his own talents. Scandals surrounding his unethical contracts and abusive practices led to his downfall. Oblivious to Seong's thoughts, Sungjung continued his pitch, claiming that Seong was a one-of-a-kind talent. With the right guidance, he could become a legendary actor. Internally, however, his motives were far from noble. He viewed child actors as fleeting investments, their popularity bound to fade as they grew older. His strategy was simple: tie them down with long-term contracts while they were still relevant, extract every possible profit, and discard them once their appeal waned. With no influential backing, Seong was the perfect target. Before he could push further, the landlord firmly rejected the offer. Seong, watching closely, felt an immense sense of relief. Sungjung, though maintaining his composed smile, asked for an explanation. The landlord was direct. A 70-30 split was outrageous, and a 10-year contract was unreasonable. Seong's value would only continue to rise, making such a deal completely unfair. Hearing her response, Sungjung's demeanor shifted slightly. He acknowledged her confidence but dismissed her concerns. The market for child actors, he argued, was not as lucrative as that for adults. Their earnings were significantly lower, making a deal like this necessary for long-term stability. Seong, seething in silence, recognized the manipulation at play. It was an attempt to make them doubt themselves, to convince them that they needed him more than he needed them. Sungjung, pushing further, brought up another concern. What if Seong's looks changed as he grew? A single shift in appearance could cause his value to plummet overnight. At this remark, Seong's mother immediately objected, appalled that such a statement was made in front of a child. Seong, barely containing his anger, silently fumed. In his mind, he scoffed at Sungjung's audacity. The man had the nerve to insult his future prospects while looking like a bloated toad himself. If anything, Seong was only going to grow more refined and successful with age. The landlord, now completely done with the conversation, stood up. To her, Sungjung lacked the foresight to recognize true potential. There was no need to waste any more time. As they prepared to leave, Sungjung, with a sly smile, made a condescending remark. He questioned why an outsider was making decisions on Seong's behalf. It was not her place to interfere. Seong's mother, unfazed, responded with conviction. She was Seong's manager. The landlord backed her up without hesitation, reaffirming her role. With her background in advertising, she understood the industry well enough to recognize an unfair deal when she saw one. Without another word, she led the group out. Sungjung, now visibly irritated, issued a warning. Ignoring him would come at a cost. The entertainment industry was ruthless, and those who defied him would struggle to survive. Unbothered by his threats, the landlord remained firm. Time would tell who truly held the upper hand. With that, they exited the office. As they walked away, frustration lingered in the air. The landlord, unable to hold back her anger, muttered about Sungjung's lack of humanity. Threatening a pregnant woman was beyond despicable. Seong silently agreed. The man was nothing more than trash. Concerned, the landlord turned to Seong's mother, checking if she was all right. His mother, however, was more worried about the landlord's well-being. Dealing with someone like Sungjung was far from easy. The landlord, brushing it off, assured them that such men were common in the industry. There was no reason to sign with a company like his. They would simply take a bus and move forward. Before they could continue, Seong's mother suddenly voiced a thought. She looked at the landlord and asked, would she consider becoming Seong's manager? The unexpected proposal left the landlord momentarily speechless. Seong, meanwhile, contemplated the idea. In business, talent was abundant, but trust was rare. The landlord had proven herself capable, knowledgeable, and most importantly, reliable. Having someone like her as a manager would be invaluable. The landlord hesitated, admitting that she was not an expert in entertainment. Before she could say more, Seong, with a bright smile, reached for her hand, silently urging her to accept. Seeing this, his mother added her own plea. She and her husband had no experience in this field. They needed someone they could trust to protect Seong's future. Moved by their words, the landlord took a deep breath. She had never considered such a path before. But at that moment, a new sense of purpose took root. With newfound determination, she agreed. From that day forward, she would do her best as Seong's manager. Seong's mother embraced her in gratitude, sealing the decision. Elsewhere, Sungjung's frustration simmered beneath the surface. A subordinate approached him with new information. The woman who had interfered, Kim Mi-young, worked for an advertising company. She was also the landlord of the house where Seong's family rented a room. Processing this, Sungjung smirked. If they refused to play by his rules, then they would learn firsthand how unforgiving the industry could be. As the day unfolded, tensions flared once again between Michael and Seong. Frustrated, Michael questioned why all the bananas were being given to Seong, expressing his own desire for them. Seong, equally annoyed, refused to share, eating even more just to keep them away from Michael. The petty rivalry between the two amused the rest of the group, who couldn't help but laugh at their antics. However, Tae-hyung, exasperated by their childish behavior, firmly told them to stop. The morning shoot progressed smoothly, and once it concluded, the director commended everyone for their hard work, announcing a short break. Seong's parents were present on set, observing the process. Noticing Seong's mother, the director approached her, acknowledging the difficulties of waiting around during filming. She, however, reassured him that she enjoyed the experience and found the filmmaking process fascinating even after months of being on set. The director, showing concern for her well-being, reminded her not to hesitate in reaching out if things ever felt overwhelming. With a warm smile, she thanked him. The conversation soon shifted to her pregnancy, and when asked about her due date, she revealed that it was approaching soon. Bringing up another topic, the director mentioned Michael's frequent bickering with Seong. While the playful clashes added entertainment value, he wondered if Michael ever crossed the line and whether it might be upsetting for her. Trusting the director's judgment, she assured him that she believed he would handle things appropriately. The director, in turn, promised to keep an eye on the situation. From a distance, the landlord quietly observed the exchange, keeping a watchful eye on Seong's mother. Meanwhile, Tae-hyung suggested that they all have lunch, but another cast member commented on how different reality felt from the scripted shoots. Seong, having indulged in an excessive amount of bananas, started feeling drowsy. However, Michael, still irritated by their earlier squabble, approached from behind, voicing his frustration. Seong, already annoyed by Michael's growing hostility, saw him as nothing more than a rude troublemaker. Despite tolerating his antics, Michael had begun crossing the line far too often. In a fit of irritation, Michael pinched Seong's cheek, causing the young boy to wail loudly. Startled, Michael quickly tried to quiet him down, insisting that it hadn't been that hard of a pinch. Before he could say more, the landlord intervened, calling Michael's name in a sharp tone. Instantly, Michael tensed, uneasy about what was coming next. She directly questioned whether he had just pinched Seong's cheek. Michael dismissed it, claiming that Seong was exaggerating over nothing. Unconvinced, the landlord pointed out that Seong wasn't the type to cry or get angry without reason. Hearing this, Seong felt a sense of satisfaction. His manager was handling things exactly as he had hoped. The landlord continued, expressing her concerns over Michael's behavior. She had noticed that he had been putting his hands on Seong far too often during filming and firmly instructed him to stop. Irritated, Michael reacted defensively, questioning why she was being so protective over someone so insignificant. Without hesitation, the landlord reminded him that thanks to Seong, he had landed a few commercial opportunities himself. She urged him to act professionally and to refrain from any physical altercations with a child. To drive the point home, she picked up Seong and walked away, leaving Michael with a stern parting remark, ensuring that he had understood her warning. Michael, now seething with anger, fumed internally. He hadn't come to Korea to babysit a brat. He had ambitions of becoming a true artist. As Seong was carried away, he flashed Michael a playful expression, sticking out his tongue in victory. Feeling increasingly alienated, Michael realized that even the other cast members had been giving him disapproving looks ever since the hot sauce incident. The frustration mounted as he contemplated a way to ruin the show entirely. He no longer felt the need to be a part of it and believed he could succeed without it. Lost in his thoughts, Michael's phone rang. He picked up the call in an irritated tone, but soon found himself taken aback by what he heard. Meanwhile, the director summoned the entire team for a special production meeting. Expressing gratitude for their hard work, he acknowledged Tae-hyung's busy schedule and Seong's growing importance to the team. Before diving into the main agenda, he shared exciting news. The show's viewership had officially surpassed 30%. The higher-ups were thrilled, and their appreciation for Seong was evident. As a token of gratitude, the director distributed performance bonuses to the team. With the series nearing its final episodes, he encouraged everyone to continue giving their best efforts until the very end. With formalities out of the way, the meeting transitioned to the main topic, the upcoming Christmas special episode. With the holiday season approaching, the network had requested a 90-minute special featuring a warm, family-friendly atmosphere. Since Seong had become more confident in walking and running, they planned to incorporate that into the episode. Seong, delighted by the idea, mentally patted himself on the back. He had been training non-stop to ensure he could walk and run without any issues. The director outlined the vision, a festive celebration where Seong and the Just Baby team would dress up for Christmas, throw a party, and even dance together on screen. Just as the discussion was gaining momentum, the assistant director suddenly interrupted with an urgent concern. He had just seen something alarming. An article about Seong had surfaced in the newspaper. The news segment that day turned its attention to a hot topic, an unusual article about Just Baby. The report hinted at trouble between Seong and his parents, though the claims seemed baseless and irresponsible. Still, public concern had been stirred. Watching this, the director quickly turned off the television, while Seong's mother, visibly worried, questioned what they should do. With a reassuring smile, the director dismissed it as nothing more than gossip, an attempt to disrupt a successful show. These kinds of rumors, he explained, were common in the television industry. Determined to get to the root of the issue, the landlord declared that she would investigate why such an article had been published. Suddenly, Seong let out a loud cry, angrily protesting the false claims. His outburst startled his mother, who turned to him in shock. Standing up, Seong tried to communicate with the director, gesturing for him to stay calm. However, his father immediately grabbed him, scolding him for his disrespectful behavior. Seong, deep in thought, recognized that public perception was ultimately a power struggle. Understanding the true motives behind the article was crucial. To win this battle, they needed to act swiftly and outmaneuver their opponents. Given the director's extensive connections in the industry, it was clear that he needed to take charge of the situation. After a moment of silence, the director agreed, acknowledging that since the issue was tied to the broadcast, the network and he would handle it appropriately. For the time being, however, he advised Seong's family to remain at home as much as possible. With journalists possibly lurking nearby, it would be best if they refrained from visiting the filming set. Though Seong's parents appeared uneasy about this, the landlord stepped in, offering to take Seong with her instead. The director, trusting her judgment, expressed his gratitude and counted on her to handle things. She reassured him that he could leave it to her, mentioning that there was also something important they needed to discuss. With that, the director promised to resolve the matter as quickly as possible and urged everyone not to worry. It would all pass soon. As he stepped outside, the assistant director approached, inquiring about the meeting's conclusion. Instead of answering directly, the director revealed what he had learned from a reliable insider. According to the information, Seong's parents were supposedly interfering in every aspect of the variety show's filming, attending daily and meddling in decisions. Hearing this, the assistant director looked startled. The director, narrowing his eyes, suspected an informant within their ranks and asked outright if it was him. Caught off guard, the assistant director quickly denied any involvement, reminding the director that he had almost been fired before and had long distanced himself from such matters. Still unconvinced, the director wondered who else it could be. As Christmas approached, the city buzzed with festive cheer. A group of volunteers called out to passers-by, encouraging them to help the less fortunate and celebrate together. A joyful voice remarked on the beauty of a white Christmas Eve. Amid the bustling crowd, Seong's mother cautiously made her way through the streets, pushing a stroller. Wearing a face mask and sunglasses, she attempted to conceal herself. Noticing her odd attire, a nearby man whispered to his female companion, questioning the need for sunglasses at night. The woman, guessing they were just bundled up against the cold, dismissed the thought. Inside the stroller, Xiong began making sounds of protest. His mother, whispering softly, urged him to stay quiet. She couldn't help but question whether coming out had been a mistake. Though she had promised the director she would remain at home, the confinement had been stifling. A short walk to meet her husband after work seemed harmless enough. Lowering her voice, she reassured Seong that she understood his eagerness to walk, but for now they needed to avoid drawing attention. Seong, growing increasingly frustrated, found the situation humiliating. Being carried around in a stroller at his age was unbearable. He longed to walk on his own. As they passed by, a conversation between two strangers caught his mother's attention. They excitedly discussed the latest episode of Just Baby, gushing over Taehyung's performance in a Santa outfit and Seong's adorable portrayal as a baby snowman. Though saddened by the show nearing its end, they couldn't help but bring up the ongoing rumors. The latest article had gone into even more detail, accusing Seong's parents of greed and suggesting that Seong himself was acting sly. One of them questioned whether such claims even made sense, considering Seong was barely turning 3. Still, they admitted that his awareness and behavior often seemed unusual for a child his age. Hearing this, Seong's anger flared. He found it absurd that they could say such things after witnessing his incredible acting. As the strangers continued walking, his mother's unease deepened. Just then, Seong's father rushed toward them, worried that they had come all the way to meet him despite the cold weather. Seeing his wife's distressed expression, he grew alarmed as she suddenly began to cry. Concerned, he gently asked what was wrong. Meanwhile, Seong, reflecting on the situation, realized the public was beginning to believe the gossip. If left unchecked, things could spiral out of control. A proper countermeasure was needed. Determined to take action, Seong's father stormed into the director's office, his voice rising in frustration. He couldn't allow this to continue any longer. He had a duty to protect his family. The director, acknowledging the gravity of the situation, sincerely apologized. Despite the network's efforts to regulate the reporters, the overwhelming public interest in Seong had only fueled the spread of rumors. Seong's father, unwilling to accept the situation as it was, insisted that something had to be done. After a moment of contemplation, the director proposed a bold solution, a direct approach. If Seong's parents were willing, he suggested conducting a live interview to address the rumors head-on. As December 31st arrived, the highly anticipated Just Baby year-end special broadcast began. The hosts cheerfully announced the show, reminiscing about the past year spent with Seong and looking forward to the New Year's special. They urged viewers to continue supporting Just Baby until the very end. Watching the broadcast, the assistant director noted that the episode had begun and suggested that they ease into the interview preparations. With a reassuring smile, he assured Seong's parents that they had made the right decision. Every possible effort had been made to resolve the controversy, but this interview was their final step. Just as stars didn't hold press conferences without reason, this interview would help clear the air. Since it was being filmed privately, there was no need to worry. Everything was under control. For now, they could relax. Seong's father turned to his wife and quietly apologized. His words took her by surprise, and she asked why he was apologizing. He admitted that with her due date approaching, everything must have been exhausting, and he felt as though he had only made things harder for her. His wife reassured him, explaining that she had wanted to do this for Seong as well. Seeing him step up so boldly had made her proud. Moved by her words, he pulled her into a gentle embrace. Moments later, the landlord arrived with Seong in her arms. She expressed her surprise at the sudden decision to hold a live interview. Seong, too, was deep in thought. Until now, they had been cautious parents just trying to navigate the situation. A live interview was an unexpectedly bold move. It wasn't a bad idea, but why such a drastic decision all of a sudden? His mother lifted him into her arms and told him how beautiful he looked that day. Holding him close, she reassured him that she and his father would make sure to clear away all the false rumors. Tears welled up in Seong's eyes. He wondered if the interview had been arranged just for him. The sight of the cameras made him nervous. Just standing in front of people was overwhelming. Watching them, Both the assistant director and the landlord couldn't help but smile. Meanwhile, the assistant director approached the director, asking if he had arrived. However, something suddenly caught him off guard, leaving him visibly startled. At that moment, Tae-hyung came rushing in, alarmed by what he had heard. The mention of a live interview made him anxious. The assistant director confirmed the situation, explaining that while the plan had been to quietly address the rumors, a large number of reporters had unexpectedly gathered. Someone had leaked the information. Outside, a massive crowd of reporters had assembled, their voices rising as they bombarded the scene with questions. Pushing through the throng, Tae-hyung reached the director, expressing his concern. Even as an idol, the overwhelming media presence was unsettling. The director, looking frustrated, admitted that the situation had already escalated beyond control. He had tried to stop it, but the crowd refused to disperse. The press conference was now in full swing, with reporters throwing relentless questions at Seong's parents. The intensity of the situation left them visibly nervous. Amid the chaos, Seong's father finally raised his voice, demanding silence. He reminded everyone that his wife was in the final stages of pregnancy and urged them to stop shouting and flashing their cameras. If they could remain calm, he promised to do his best to answer their questions. A reporter challenged him, asking why they had created such a public spectacle in the first place. Taking a deep breath, Seong's father addressed the gathering. Acknowledging the recent wave of damaging rumors, he revealed that both he and his wife had grown up in an orphanage. They had nothing when they left but each other, and together they had worked tirelessly to build a family they could be proud of. Seong's journey in the industry had begun when a kind neighbor recognized his talent. Above all, he wanted the world to understand that he and his wife were not greedy parents exploiting their son for money. He pleaded with the media to stop hurting his family with baseless accusations. However, the reporters remained relentless. One of them scoffed at his words, demanding proof. How much had they earned so far? If they were telling the truth, why not show their bank statements? Hearing this, Seong's frustration reached its peak. Without hesitation, he climbed down from his mother's arms and stood protectively in front of his parents, facing the reporters. Though his pronunciation was not yet perfect, his message was clear. He would not allow anyone to bully his parents. At that moment, Tae-hyung subtly signaled to the director. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, both he and the director stepped forward and swiftly ended the interview. With the commotion settling, Seong turned to his father and asked if he was okay. His father, overwhelmed with emotion, pulled him into a tight hug, apologizing for not being better with words. Seong, understanding his father's struggle, silently reassured him. He had done enough. Next, he turned to his mother. But something about her expression seemed off. Her face was tense, and her breathing was uneven. Struggling to speak, she finally admitted that she was experiencing contractions. Both Seong and his father froze in shock as they realized what was happening. The baby was coming. As the ambulance rushed toward the hospital, Seong's mother's condition worsened. Her face contorted in pain, while her husband, holding back tears, urged her to endure just a little longer. The hospital was not far now. Despite her evident distress, she reassured Seong, trying to appear calm. However, Seong could see through her words. The pain on her face was undeniable. Feeling helpless, he wondered if there was anything he could do. Childbirth was entirely unfamiliar to him, and the uncertainty only made him more anxious. A short while later, inside the hospital, relief and joy filled the air. Seong's mother had successfully given birth, and the news spread quickly among those waiting. Seong's father and the assistant director were overjoyed, celebrating the arrival of the newborn. The assistant director turned to Seong's mother, acknowledging the ordeal she had gone through, and asked how she was feeling. She responded with a grateful smile, expressing thanks for everyone's support. Admiring the newborn, the assistant director marveled at his adorable features. He had wondered if any baby could match Seong's charm, but Mingguk, with his round cheeks, was just as captivating. As he reached out to touch the infant, Seong instinctively swatted his hand away. With a stern look, he made it clear that newborns should not be touched so carelessly, and that hands should be washed first. The assistant director chuckled, noting how Seong was already acting like a protective older brother. Seong, deep in thought, reflected on his past life, recalling how his younger siblings had always been troublemakers. Determined to raise this one properly, he resolved to be a guiding presence for Minguk. Meanwhile, the director approached Seong's father with a request. Given the overwhelming response to the live broadcast, he asked if he could film a short segment featuring Seong and Minguk. Seong's father readily agreed. As the assistant director began filming, Seong's father turned to the director, seeking an update on the situation they had left behind. The director assured him that there was no longer any reason to worry. Everything was nearly resolved, and they had even identified the person responsible for leaking information. Elsewhere, the culprit had been caught. The other actors had managed to corner Michael, who now stood frozen in shock. Clutching his pager, he stammered in disbelief, questioning how they had managed to catch him. Tae-hyung, standing before him, pointed out the series of suspicious events. Confidential details from the set had been appearing in articles, and even information unknown to the staff had been leaked to the media. The pattern was too obvious to ignore. Michael, still feigning innocence, attempted to dismiss the accusations. However, Tae-hyung was unconvinced. His recent behavior had raised too many red flags, prompting Lucas to keep a close watch on him. As expected, the truth eventually surfaced. Confronting him, Tae-hyung revealed a crucial piece of evidence: the connection between Michael and Shin Sung-jung, the CEO of Shinsung Entertainment. Michael froze. His expression shifted from defiance to panic. Tae-hyung pressed further, revealing that Seong's manager had suspected Shinsung Entertainment's involvement. The number left in Michael's pager voicemail had belonged to them. Assisting someone like Shin Sung-jung in tormenting Seong's family was inexcusable. Both Michael and the CEO would have to take responsibility for their actions. Soon, the police arrested Shin Sung-jung as well. Reporters surrounded him, bombarding him with questions and demanding an explanation. Desperate to clear his name, he denied any involvement. Back at the hospital, after learning the full story, Seong's father was visibly troubled. The director reassured him that Tae-hyung would handle Michael personally and ensure that he issued a formal apology. As further reparation, Just had agreed to cover the hospital expenses, with the broadcasting station also offering financial support. If there were any additional requests, they were open to discussing them. Seong's father, however, declined any further compensation. The private hospital room they had been provided was more than enough. Being together as a family was all they could ask for. If the rumors vanished, they would be completely at peace. Hearing this, the director smiled, relieved that things had settled. Thanks to the heartfelt interview, public support had overwhelmingly shifted in their favor. He assured them that he and the manager would ensure everything was thoroughly taken care of. He then informed them of the network's decision. Given the recent events, they planned to take a 2-month break from broadcasting. Seong's father hesitated, questioning whether such a long hiatus was necessary. The director reassured him, explaining that they already had pre-recorded footage. There was nothing to worry about. For now, they should simply rest and enjoy their time as a family. When the 2 months passed, they would return in the spring. As time moved forward, the seasons changed. Though the new year had barely begun, March had already arrived, bringing blooming flowers and a sense of renewal. With the arrival of spring, more exciting news awaited. The nation's beloved baby, Seong, was making his return. Announcements of the upcoming broadcast had already started circulating. At home, Seong's mother placed a gentle hand on her husband's shoulder and asked what he was watching. Jeon Jae-hyung sat watching television, his gaze fixed on the screen where Seong appeared. Curious, he turned to Seon, questioning whether she recognized the child. Seon reminded him that they had met Seong before at the filming site for the Spinwash commercial. As Jae-hyung recalled the encounter, she asked why he was suddenly interested. He admitted that something about the boy had caught his attention. There was an unusual intrigue in the way he carried himself. Seon, settling comfortably beside him, explained that it was because Seong was a genius. His talent was exceptional, and he had the potential to become anything he desired. Still skeptical, Jae-hyung wondered if Seong was just another temporary child actor, praised only for his current cuteness. Seon confidently dismissed the thought. While she acknowledged that her own success was aided by his connections, she also prided herself on having a sharp eye for talent. Seong wasn't just any child actor. He had the natural qualities of a great performer. She then pointed out that Shinsung Entertainment had tried to exploit him, only for their plans to backfire, ultimately leading to their downfall. Hearing the name of the agency, Jae-hyung raised an eyebrow. Seon had been associated with them, after all. She confirmed that she was in the process of terminating her contract. The terms had been unfavorable anyway, so the situation worked to her advantage. Jae-hyung then asked about her next steps. Did she have another agency in mind? She hinted at an interesting plan, but preferred to proceed carefully for now. However, she suggested that if he was truly interested, investing in Seong might be worthwhile. Jae-hyung, intrigued, considered the idea. Meanwhile, at Seong's home, the landlord arrived with a bowl of seaweed soup, placing it in front of him. The rich aroma filled the air, bringing a sense of warmth and comfort. As he took a bite, he found himself pleasantly surprised, wondering if their manager, Kim, was also skilled in cooking. The landlord then served Seong's mother, who expressed her gratitude. Preparing meals for them so often was a kindness she deeply appreciated. The landlord, however, brushed off the thanks. As Seong's manager, it was only natural for her to take care of him. Still, Seong's mother pointed out that she never accepted any payment for the food and fruit she provided. The landlord simply urged her to eat instead of talking. They were family, and looking after them was something she considered her responsibility. Hearing this, Seong's mother felt deeply touched. As they ate, Seong noticed Mingguk reaching for his food. Gently but firmly, he reminded the baby that this was his meal and that Mingguk had his own milk. Amused, Seong's mother laughed, noting how her younger son now copied everything his older brother did. His attachment to Seong made childcare significantly easier. Seong, however, saw things differently. Over the past 2 months, he had come to a harsh realization: taking care of a baby was nothing short of exhausting. Mingguk cried at all hours, refused to sleep, and constantly sought his attention. In his past life, his siblings had been troublesome, but he had hoped this one would be different. Instead of a loyal follower, he had gained an endlessly needy baby brother. Just then, Mingguk gazed up at Seong with his large, innocent eyes, looking incredibly adorable. Seong, despite his exhaustion, sighed in defeat and gave in, feeding him milk one last time. Both Seong's mother and the landlord burst into laughter, watching the scene unfold. The landlord jokingly pointed out that it was like watching a baby take care of another baby. Seong's mother agreed, mentioning how much she benefited from having Seong around. After a moment, the landlord shifted the conversation to a more serious topic. She asked if Seong's mother had considered moving. With 2 children now, their current home was too small and old for raising a family. Even as the landlady, she found it amusing to say such a thing. But the reality remained. Seong's mother hesitated. They simply didn't have enough money at the moment. The landlord, however, posed an interesting question. What if money suddenly became available? Confused, Seong's mother asked what she meant. Leaning in, the landlord revealed the news in a low voice. Samjeon Electronics had reached out. They were interested in signing Seong as their exclusive model. The revelation left Seong's mother in shock. The landlord continued, explaining that an offer had been made and the detailed contract terms would be sent soon. This could be a major opportunity for them. Still absorbing the news, Seong's mother sat in stunned silence. For now, the landlord suggested focusing on their meal. After all, they still had to visit the broadcasting station later. The network had arranged for a car to pick them up, so there was no rush. But as she glanced outside, she suddenly noticed a vehicle already parked at the gate. Hurrying to open it, she called out to confirm whether the driver was from the broadcasting station. However, as the door swung open, her expression froze in shock. Standing there was none other than Michael. As Seong stepped forward, he faced Michael with a questioning gaze, wondering why he had appeared. His thoughts swirled with resentment. Michael, the one who had sided with Shin Sung-jung and betrayed their family, had the audacity to show up now. Suspicion crept in, making him wonder if Michael held a grudge and intended to cause harm. Before Seong could react further, Tae-hyung emerged from behind Michael with a cheerful expression. He explained that they had come to see Seong after so long and had even brought a car for the occasion. More importantly, Michael had something to say. Without hesitation, Michael apologized sincerely, acknowledging his past mistakes. A heavy silence followed his words. Xiong, still fuming internally, found it impossible to accept such a simple apology as enough. Xiong's mother, however, responded with kindness. She accepted the apology, expressing hope that Michael had his reasons. Her willingness to move forward caught both Xiong and the landlord by surprise. Xiong couldn't help but feel that she was always too forgiving, always too lenient. But if his parents chose to be kind, he would ensure to be sharp and meticulous in their place. His anger simmered beneath the surface. With the moment passing, Tae-hyung suggested that they should get going since everyone was waiting for Xiong's family. Soon they arrived at the director's apartment, where the director greeted Xiong warmly. A rare smile appeared on Xiong's face as he embraced the director, a sight that did not go unnoticed. The director playfully remarked on Xiong's unusually warm greeting, while Xiong, deep in thought, realized something. He was made for work. He was exhausted from childcare and needed to dedicate himself fully to his career. Turning to his mother, he inquired about her well-being. Before she could respond, Minguk's soft cries interrupted the moment. The little one had grown even cuter over the past 2 months, prompting the director to approach him affectionately. However, Minguk's cries grew louder, catching everyone off guard. Xiong's mother explained that Minguk had become attached to Xiong, and his distress was because he couldn't see his older brother. Bringing the conversation back to work, the director mentioned the changes over the last 2 months. With 20 episodes left before the final broadcast, the last episode was expected to air in September. Once the show resumed, the first event planned was a cherry blossom picnic. The scene shifted to the filming location, where Tae-hyung teased Seong, calling him a cherry blossom fairy. Compliments flowed from all directions, making Seong feel unexpectedly pleased. The assistant director then gathered the cast, announcing that filming would begin soon. Just then, a cast member with pink hair lifted Xiong up playfully, urging him to move. As they continued, a car suddenly pulled up at the location. The driver, speaking into a device, confirmed his arrival at the filming site as per the vice chairman's orders. Inside the car, the vice chairman sat in contemplation, questioning whether he really needed to be there. His mind drifted back to a prior conversation with his secretary regarding Xiong's exclusive contract. When asked about its progress, the secretary explained that while the offer had been clearly conveyed, Xiong's parents felt overwhelmed by its scale, causing delays. He inquired whether he should push them further, but the vice chairman dismissed the idea. Instead, his thoughts lingered on the contract itself. The secretary admitted that the offer seemed excessive given Xiong's experience, and questioned whether he was truly worth such an investment. The vice chairman, however, believed otherwise. There was something about Xiong, an unexplainable attraction, a connection that felt undeniable. In his mind, it was akin to the pull of blood ties. Meanwhile, the vice chairman's driver stepped out of the car, stating that he had something to confirm. At that moment, the pink-haired cast member noticed something unusual. Looking ahead, he pointed towards a figure and recognized him instantly, Samjeon's vice chairman. Seong, startled by the revelation, turned his gaze towards the man standing there. The sight made his breath hitch as his thoughts screamed a single word: father. As Seong looked at the vice chairman, a flood of memories from his past life surfaced. His father from his previous existence, John Jae-hyung, had always been an enigma. Born as the eldest son of the man who built Samjeon, he was raised to be the company's successor. Unlike his grandfather's authoritative rule, his father had a different approach. The founding monarch had been a hegemon, while the current leader was purely performance-oriented. That was the word that defined him: performance. Results were all that mattered, whether in business, family, or even his children. Taeguk and Mi-jin, who had failed to meet his high expectations, had always struggled with feelings of inferiority. But Seong had been different. He had ignored his father's expectations altogether and surpassed them on his own terms. Their relationship had never been comfortable, filled with distance and unspoken tension. Yet, no matter how frustrating it had been, the undeniable truth remained. He was still his father's child. Lost in thought, Seong unintentionally let a word slip from his mouth. Father. The vice chairman immediately caught on to it, repeating the word with a questioning tone. Realizing his mistake, Seong panicked. It had come out unconsciously. Smiling, the vice chairman greeted him and asked if he remembered their previous meeting at the washing machine commercial shoot. Without hesitation, Seong denied it. Unfazed, the vice chairman questioned why he had called him father if he truly didn't remember. Annoyed, Seong brushed it off, but the older man remained persistent, insisting that he had clearly heard it. Seong inwardly sighed, recalling how relentless this man could be. Before the conversation could escalate, the director arrived, his expression filled with surprise as he addressed the vice chairman. The unexpected visit raised questions, but the vice chairman calmly explained that he had only wanted to see Seong briefly before leaving. Apologizing for interrupting the filming, he maintained a composed demeanor. Curious, the director pressed further, wanting to understand the reason behind this sudden interest. The vice chairman revealed that seeing Seong in person had confirmed his thoughts. His bright, determined eyes bore a striking resemblance to his younger self. He then brought up the contract, ensuring that Seong's mother had reviewed it. She confirmed that she had, reaffirming their readiness for an exclusive contract at any time. The vice chairman encouraged them to reach out once they had made their decision. Before leaving, he assured them that any additional conditions could be negotiated. Just as Seong was about to speak, his mother swiftly covered his mouth, preventing him from uttering another word. Internally, Seong couldn't help but think about the immense wealth his father possessed. The vice chairman let out a deep laugh, amused by the situation. Placing a hand gently on Seong's head, he promised that money would be prepared for him whenever he was ready. His mother accepted the offer with a composed response. With that, the vice chairman took his leave. As Seong watched him go, a strange mix of emotions settled in his chest. Never had he expected to cross paths with this man again in this lifetime. A conglomerate vice chairman and a commoner child. They had become so distant. Yet in his past life, his father had trusted him more than anyone, considering him the smartest of his children. The thought brought a quiet satisfaction, a lingering warmth amidst the complex emotions. The director's voice snapped him back to the present, signaling the resumption of filming. Shaking off his thoughts, Seong refocused on the task at hand. His current life mattered more. The upcoming filming schedule ran through his mind. A spring picnic special, a Children's Day special, and a summer vacation special. Before filming could properly begin, a commotion arose nearby. Fans had started pushing into the filming area, prompting the security guards to hold them back. Watching the chaos unfold, the assistant director wondered how they had even found out about the shoot. Lately, filming had become increasingly difficult due to obsessive Sasaeng fans. Seong's mother commented on the national idol group that had gained immense popularity, drawing even more attention to the filming locations. The assistant director warned everyone to stay cautious, noting that some fans even went as far as breaking into sets. As Seong observed the growing crowd, he reflected on how much these kids had grown. The group Just Baby, despite balancing concerts and album releases, had risen to the top of the music industry over the past 6 months. Meanwhile, Seong himself had become a top-tier commercial model, securing numerous high-profile endorsements. Even the directors had received generous bonuses due to the success of the projects. Despite all the achievements, the end was drawing near. Just Baby didn't have much time left. Perhaps the filming after the next would be their last. The realization felt bittersweet. Before he could dwell on the thought, an unfamiliar hand suddenly grabbed his. A stranger, standing too close for comfort, looked at him with urgency and made a request. Seong was caught off guard for a moment, but as he turned, he realized it was Tae-hyung. Despite being nervous enough to stay hidden from the Sasaeng fans, Tae-hyung still cared about the situation. Seong acknowledged his concern and asked what he needed help with. Before they could continue, the assistant director approached, questioning why they were standing there. Tae-hyung took the opportunity to explain his request. He wanted Seong to choose their album's title track. Inside the room, Tae-hyung was handed a microphone, hesitating at the realization that this was going to be recorded. The director prompted him to explain the situation. Tae-hyung revealed that their next album was ready for release. but the group couldn't agree on a title track. The members held differing opinions, making it difficult to reach a consensus. In the end, he had decided to ask Seong for his choice. The director, surprised, questioned whether it was truly wise to let a 3-year-old make such an important decision. Taehyung admitted that they had hesitated at first as well. However, looking back, Seong had played a significant role in shaping their group's identity over the past year. Despite their clumsiness, they had learned a lot from caring for him. With the show ending soon, they wanted to leave a lasting mark on their album, something that connected them to Seong before they parted ways. One of the members turned to Seong asking for his thoughts. Seong, internally amused by their trust, made his choice without hesitation. The members were visibly shocked. The director asked which song he had chosen, and Taehyung revealed that it was a track Jaehyun had participated in producing. Among the 3 candidates, it had the most unique style. Most of the members, except Jaehyun and Beomseon, had originally considered it a B-side. Seong couldn't help but smile at the irony. In his past life, that very song had remained a B-side but had unexpectedly dominated the charts, ranking #1 for 5 consecutive weeks. Even someone like him who had no interest in music had memorized some of its lyrics. It had been played everywhere. If it had been the title track from the beginning, it would have gained even more recognition. One of the members tried to persuade him to reconsider, but Seong stood firm. His decision was final. Seeing his resolve, Taehyung accepted it, promising that they would do their best to promote the song Seong had chosen. Time passed, and soon the final episode of Just Baby was being celebrated. On the day of the party, Seong's mother guided him into a dark room. He was puzzled by the darkness, suspecting that the group had planned something before the final episode aired. Deciding to play along, he waited for what was to come. The lights suddenly switched on, and a chorus of voices shouted in unison, wishing him a happy birthday. Taehyung led the celebration, singing for him, while the pink-haired member also joined in. The director revealed that they had coordinated this surprise to align with the final episode party, ensuring his birthday was properly celebrated. Seong had anticipated something predictable, but actually experiencing the moment filled him with joy. The warmth of being celebrated, the genuine happiness from everyone, it felt undeniably good. The director then announced that the broadcasting station had prepared Korean beef for the occasion. The revelation stunned everyone. As the meal was served, excitement filled the air. The cast and staff enjoyed the food together, and Seong indulged in the delicious meal. Raising their glasses, everyone toasted to their hard work and dedication. Watching the overwhelming happiness around her, Seong's mother became emotional, her eyes welling up with tears. Just then, an unfamiliar man arrived. She turned to him, asking about his identity. The man introduced himself as someone sent by the vice chairman to deliver congratulations on the final episode. Additionally, he had brought a small gift. The unexpected gesture caught Seong's mother by surprise. Before leaving, the man reminded her to review the contract when she had the time. A sense of realization dawned upon her. Smiling, she assured him that they would visit as soon as possible. The next morning, Seong, his mother, and their landlord walked together toward their destination. The landlord, noticing the early departure, expressed concern about whether Seong's mother should take more time to rest. However, she dismissed the concern, reminding them that she had made a promise to visit soon. Turning to Seong, she asked if he was tired as well. Seong, deep in thought, found the very idea amusing. There was no room for exhaustion. He needed to stay focused. His father, cunning, and never one to take a loss, surely had his own motives. Now was the time to uncover his true intentions.